extend to you a very warm welcome to today's session. Today's roundtable discussion will be on the topic data-driven decision optimization across oil and gas value chain. ETEnergyworld, together with SAS, is organizing this roundtable discussion with a purpose to understand the significance of data and analytical tools in getting the optimized decision for each processes. Before we started, I would like to take and start with the discussion. Firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Anish Dey, Global Sector Head, Power and Utilities from KPMG India, who will be moderating this insightful discussion. It's my pleasure to further invite the other panelists as well. Mr. B.P. Raju, Executive Director and Head Operation Technology from ONGC India. Mr. Rahul Tandon, Head Digital Transformation from Bharat Petroleum. Mr. Sandeep Gupta, Chief Digital and Information Officer from KN India. Mr. Santosh Bhise, AVP Technical Services from Pipeline Infrastructure Limited. And Mr. Naveen Sikka, Principal Industry Consultant, Oil and Gas from SAS India. We will also have Dr. C. Lakshma Reddy, Additional Director General Exploration from DGH India, who will be joining us in some time. With that, a very warm welcome to all the panelists. A quick announcement before the audiences to keep sharing their questions in the Q&A box. Now, without any further delay, I would request Mr. Anish Dey to start over today's discussion. Over to you, Mr. Anish.
Thank you, Priyanka. And my apologies at the outset for a little delayed start, which is entirely attributable to me. I got delayed in traffic traveling between cities, but I'm glad that we are starting up, and without further ado, we will go to the core theme. Just as a quick introduction of the theme from my end as well as we start, and we have some very esteemed panelists who would be speaking on those themes. But essentially, the oil and gas industry has been traditionally very, very data driven, okay, because we have the control systems, the SCADA, everything, which has been around for a very, very long time. And you can see between upstream, downstream, pipelines, in every segment, that has been the case. However, when we look at this new age digital technologies coming in and data associated with that, we possibly haven't seen the same uptake as, say, other sectors like fintech and others have seen, finance and others have seen, or media, for example, where things happen very quickly. But we are at the cusp of that change where the energy industry, including the oil and gas industry, is now rapidly changing. And all the players who are represented over here have gone forward and actually implemented significant digital technologies. And the associated data is the wealth of those digital technologies. So how they are using that data, what have been the successes, what have been the challenges, what is the way forward, is what we want to talk about today. And so let me go over to the first of the panelists, and I'm not going in any particular order. I'm just picking, and possibly picking Rahul Tandon, because he and I have spoken on this many times before. But BPCL also as an organization has made some significant progresses in the data-driven decision making. It is, in fact, really a company to admire. And yet I know that there have been challenges on the way. So Rahul, what we'll do is, with you as well as with others, have your opening statements around this, and then we go into the next round and the Q&A. But if you could take 3 or 4 minutes for your opening statements, and if you allow me, I'll make some notes so that we can have an engaging discussion after that as well.
Sure. Thanks, Anish, and very good afternoon to all the eminent panelists here. It's a privilege to be speaking on this platform, and it's always a wonderful experience to be speaking with Anish. As you rightly said, we have had multiple instances of discussing on these subjects in different forums. To start with, I know we have experts who are going to talk on the different parts of the value chain in the oil and gas industry. I would start with typically what is our core, and that is the marketing part. Typically, oil industry and oil companies in India have a different kind of complexity, and they have a reach which is unparalleled with any other industry. It's very complex to run a marketing transformation in this kind of environment where you know that your product is invisible, nobody has seen it, yet everybody consumes it. It's highly commoditized because the quality, quantity, and the service quotient of the products we deal in have kind of achieved a level of service saturation. So with this kind of environment, how do you make a difference is a very complex challenge to deal with. We deal with diverse customers who get a similar buying experience. I mean, from a gatekeeper to a chairman of any organization, he also comes to fuel at the fuel station. He also receives a cylinder at the house. So it's, how do we give them that experience which is befitting their stature is a very big complex challenge. Language. India speaks languages which are uncountable, yet we need to service the different requirements of our customers. So language offers yet another complexity, and the fact that each of our businesses have till now operated to cater to the requirement of their specific target segment. So which had created a kind of siloed structure, which we have tried to neutralize and bring some kind of identification or unification of our customers across business lines. So with digital changing customers' expectation, the pandemic creating situations where we had to innovate differently, and the fact that the management of BPCL has always believed that customer experience can be the sole differentiator. We took up the digital transformation at BPCL. Now, when we talk on the specific subject, that is on the data-driven decision making, it's data is the new oil and gas, and I'm sure all of us have been hearing this for months together, rather years together. And all the solutions what we create in our industry, in our organization, generates a lot of data, which can be used to develop new solutions, use cases, and provide better experience. And possibly that is what each one of us in our order of priority, be it in refining, be it in upstream, or be it in marketing, we are trying to build those use cases to provide that better experience to our customers, be it internal or be it external. So I believe that there is it's no more emerging; it has already emerged, and it's for someone to take advantage of and create that impact by utilizing this data, which is now coming out of different solutions. We are taking baby steps in that direction, and I'm sure as the discussion progresses, I will share with you some of those success stories which BPCL has been able to leverage on. Thanks, Anish. Over to you.
Thanks, Rahul. And we will talk about the successes as well as the challenges, because I think that's exactly all this ideation is about. And as you said, going from gatekeeper to chairman, getting the same experience, which means that it has to be a simple, unified experience. How do we do that? As one of my colleagues say, that the more beautiful the car, the more complex it is under the hood. So how do we more sophisticated the car, the more complex it is out under the hood. So how do we go under the hood is something we want to do. We'll follow the value chain a little bit now and go to Mr. BP Raju. Basically, upstream again is all data, and we know that, and we'll talk to Mr. Lakshmi Reddy also on the NDR when he joins us. But as ONGC, okay, you have been using data. And yet, I'm sure there is a lot more which you plan to do. So would want you to take us through your thought process about, what have been the outlook, what successes, failures, and, how do you see data playing out in the coming future? Mr. Raju. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, am I audible?
Very audible now. Thank you.
So first of all, thanks to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to join this elite panel. Data-driven decision making has always been there, as you rightly pointed out. We have been in digital front maybe 20 years down the lane. We have automated all our wells and all in 80s itself. Most of the, at least in offshore areas, was heavily automated. Onshore automation was a bit less compared to offshore areas. But in offshore, we were using the latest technologies from the almost 80s when the platforms came up with multinationals, multi-vendors and things like that. But the problem is right now the focus is on analytics. How I can better use the data. How informed decision can making happen with analytics, physics-based analytics, or as earlier what the model was telling, based on artificial intelligence, machine language. So the challenge in data is who is the ownership of the data? Who is basically all these analytics need hierarchical of data. So when we are looking at hierarchical data, suppose 5-year-old data, who will certify the data quality? Who will say that this not only it may be the data may be there. So let's say pressure is 10 kg, then why not 10.5? So how do you assure that this is calibrated? So a lot of interplays happen. And also when we are analyzing data from multi-systems, let's say if I am analyzing data from a vibration data, unless there is a process data integrated with the vibration data, the meaningful decision will not be able, the domain will not be able to take the meaningful decision. So if there is a certain amount of higher vibration, what is the pressure points at that point? Suction and discharge, are they same? Are they different? That adds a different new realm to the meaning of data. So the better decision can be taken only if all the data is there. And in OT, typically we deal with legacy systems. The challenges have been how to get data from legacy systems. What data is critical, what is non-critical, how do you define it, and how do you pull the data? Let me tell you, our operational data has always been integrated with production data, is integrated with SAP, our ERP software. So every day the live data goes into our ERP and the balance sheet reflects our live data. So that's one good major achievement our organization management has taken long back. So the challenge is the balance sheet has to be good. So the accuracy of the data quality, how do I account for the automatic changes in the data quality? These are the challenges. And we have been coping up, and we have upgraded our SCADA. Production SCADA upgrade has been huge across pan-India. We have upgraded. We have already upgraded our drilling SCADA, and we have implemented analytical layers on drilling. One of them is a SaaS platform is also coming up, is awarded. And well, one real good achievement recently we have done with drilling data is I'm making real-time data available on a mobile to my vendor. So the real-time data is available of a drilling rig, the operational data on a mobile of the user. So the drilling operators, the chemistry guys, the geologists, the geophysicists, even the basin people, they are able to see the monitor the rig dynamically on the mobile itself. So this has been one of the challenges we face. And I would like to listen more to the stories because everybody is doing a lot of things on digital and analytics and all. And there are good success stories to be had from across the terrain. If you see and we are setting up multiple platforms because we also believe that there is no one unique solution which defines all the requirements. The requirements of different domains, like production may have a different requirement, drilling may have a different requirement. There is no one unique platform we believe that solves all the answers, which gives all the answers. So there has to be some domain in-depth knowledge curve also should be there with what we are looking for. So these are the solutions which we are looking for.
Right. So we'll take it forward from there because multiple points have been made, but I think the key ones which I do want to cover is in terms of data provenance, data quality, connecting all the data together. properly. So I think there are quite interesting points, and in fact, we do want to go into that as we go forward. But great to know about the progress being made at ONGC also. It does have certain limitations in terms of how the legacy systems have operated and how we are now trying to pull this together. Let's go to the private sector from here and pull in Mr. Sandeep Gupta again. And there's a lot of work, and you have done, especially including on the EOR, IOR, which is all heavily data dependent. I'm not saying that's the only thing you've done. You've done lots of things. But that is an area which clearly stands out in terms of how you have done this. I want to talk about those experiences, and also in some sense, how are you commercially seeing that? Not just about the technical aspects, but how do you use data? How do you kind of get to the ROI from use of data? If you could just go a little bit into that, if you wish.
Sure, Anish, and thanks for having me here. See, couple of things, before I answer this question, I think it's very important to know what our data journey has been. Many times we speak about the digital journey, but it will be just interesting. I will recap quickly as to how our data journey has been. See, we started a couple of years back. Again, some people or some organizations start with a data lake, and then they get into the analytics, Power BI. For us, it was a bit different. Few years back, we always realized we need the Power BI apps. And then we realized we don't have actually a data lake where we have the entire data. So, and again, there was a simple ask. We need to look into the production reports. How do we look into that? So we need to create the data lake. We started, 3 years, possibly 2.5, 3 years back. We created our Azure data lake to start with. And then as the traction increased, people started liking, the reports coming out almost real time. We were putting all our data, which was the time series data in Historian, over to the Azure data lake. And from there, we used to get the production reports. Now, as the appetite increased in terms of people actually realizing the power of these reports, then we started integrating more and more, data sources there. And right now, if you look into, we have different data sources, whether it is the geological data, seismic data, whether it is the SAP data. This is all now coming into this one Azure data. And now what we are doing is we have started getting the overall picture as you start integrating different data sources. This is where we are. We are using AI ML in bits and parts for specific use cases. Right? I mean, if you look into, we use various pumps. So what is the optimum frequency? Just as an example, it should operate into. So we crunch the data, find it out. But are we looking at the entire value chain? I think there are platforms available. That's the next part which we want to look into, where the workflows, the optimization, everything is driven by our data. And then there is a platform which uses that data. So that is our ultimate ambition. That's what our next steps are. And this is what we are doing. Specifically on, we have specific projects on polymer optimization. We use a lot of polymer. Now, again, data is so powerful from that perspective. What is the viscosity of this polymer? Again, this has a cost implication. This has a volume implication, because you want to put the polymer of the right viscosity, then you will be able to sweep out more oil. And even if you optimize that, your cost also would be less, because polymer is very costly. So I mean, that is an area where we have used AI ML specifically. And then again, very important question which you asked around the business case, right? We look into 3 aspects. Whenever we start a project, either we get volume enhancement, we get cost reduction, or it is safety and environment, ESG benefits. So basically, every use case is looked. There might be multiple areas. It can be both volume and cost also in some of the areas. But we are very clear then what are the parameters, how do we calculate the volumes, right? I mean, to take an example, if you use APCs, and if a certain frequency has to be maintained, so the oil volume we calculate pre-using this, post-using this. And again, there are various parameters, but at a high level, Anish, 3 things: volume, cost, and ESG. These are the 3 things which we look before we derive our business case.
Right, great. Thank you. I think, again, a great set of points and also a very clear view about how you're looking and also the evolution, how it has been. So we'll come back to some of those themes, but let me go over to Santosh Bise at this time. You work in the downstream infrastructure and pipeline infra, and there is it's a business which has multiple use cases coming together, and also something where a lot of flow happens and data flows from that. So what are your principal use cases? That's a curiosity which comes in the mind. So I would want you to make your opening comments, taking the whole view, 360 view. But in terms of pipeline, what are the unique kind of use cases that you are getting to see is something which piques our curiosity. Please, Santosh.
Yeah, good afternoon, Anish, and good afternoon, all the panelists. I represent a downstream business of oil and gas sector. So our pipeline is quite a young pipeline in India. It's just 11, 12 years old, and we got all the opportunity to deploy the most latest available technologies from day one. Like we are equipped with SCADA, our operations are totally remote enabled. We manage our operations from single point operation control rooms. So the data is very important for us, whether you analyze it traditionally or with advanced analytical tools. It's very important for decision making. It helps. I would like to quote some of the examples how we are using this. We are having pipeline application software, which is having offline and online mode. Online mode helps us, for leak detection, then line pack management, then choosing which compressor stations to operate and all that kind of stuff. It helps us. And for offline model, this offline model helps us to run different scenarios and with different flow conditions, pressure conditions, which compressor stations you can run. It gives us that kind of tool to select and manage our pipeline operations. Apart from that, for asset integrity management point of view, we are having this pipeline integrity management software, wherein all your terrain data, construction data, design data sits into, and we feed our inline inspection data into that. It gives us, high risk areas, which we can focus for further risk mitigation and all. The most important aspect of our operations is we are availing third-party services from OEM, that is GE, for remote monitoring and diagnostic of all our gas turbines. We are having a fleet of 30 gas turbines. So the real-time data of thousands of tags goes into servers of GE. They store it, analyze it, and gives us prediction on failures. That is the most important for us, by which we can manage our maintenance and schedule our maintenance. Apart from that, they help us in giving us notifications well in advance if something is going abnormal. So these are few of the aspects how we are using technology into our pipeline operations and maintenance. Thank you, Anish.
Right. Thank you. And I think very interesting points, both from online and offline monitoring and management. And online, you mentioned ops, asset management, but also line pack management. And I do want to come back to this because, when we have a market-based economy in gas now coming in, the flows are not necessarily the same way as it used to be earlier. It used to be very long-term contract-based flows. You had lots of predictability. I just want to understand as we go deeper into the questions on whether anything is going to change or likely to change with market-based operations coming in the gas sector. And given that IGX is already operating, there are, and it's quite substantial volumes now. And with new gas coming in, both domestic gas and international gas, how do you see that changing? But that may be in the second round as we go forward. I think Mr. Lakshman Reddy is yet to join. But we'll wait for him. But in the meantime, go over to Naveen Sikka of SAS and ask about his views, because you're seeing it from the other side of the table and seeing how evolution has happened. Sometimes it must be meeting your expectations. Sometimes it must be frustrating that so much of possibilities are there, and yet the pace is not quite what it is. So how have you seen life evolve for you?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So over the years, I've been in this industry for last 25 years, and we have seen the mindset change of people from the industry, whether in the upstream or midstream or downstream. Like Mr. Tandon was saying, about the customer experience. It was good to hear that within his 3 or 4 minutes, he spoke about 5 or 6 times improving the customer experience. Earlier in the days, people used to say that, the gasoline consumption is, anyway, it is getting sold. So why bother about the customers? Nowadays, whether it is BPCL or any other OMC, I mean, they talk about customer experience, and tools are available within, when we go to downstream customers, they particularly talk about, how to improve upon the customer experience, how to get their feedbacks, and then on real-time basis, make the recommendations so that not only the customers can benefit, even the companies can benefit from margin point of view. So we have, this is off late last 1 or 2 years from the pandemic days also, or before the pandemic. I mean, this has been quite a tool which has been looked after. And talking from from predictive capabilities, like Mr. Sandeep Gupta was talking about, building up predictive capabilities in terms of the production system. So those are the things not only within the upstream industry, but in the downstream, from the refinery perspective, those things are getting developed, integrating it with different varied databases, varied sources, and then giving and developing a predictive system, not only from production side, from quality side, from yield side, those kind of capabilities, because on the ground level, the situations keep on changing over a period of time. Of course, the first principle basis models are available, but over a period of time, what we have seen is the customers are expecting that, it has to be an integrated model where you build, over the years, the data which has been collected, how the systems have performed, how the instrumentation have performed, and then you do some feature engineering, develop additional variables, and then build some predictive modeling capabilities. So these kind of things we have done globally. We have discussed with our customers and started implementing it at a ground level also. So these are the things what we have been discussing with our customers, not only from data management perspective, but from advanced analytics perspective, whether it is forecasting, optimization. It's completely based upon how more the data is available. But yes, one more point which I would like to touch upon is from the data quality perspective, that when we start implementing these models, the prime challenge what we face is from the data quality perspective, that how to improve upon the quality, because many a times it is missing data, or it is the data quality is bad, or it is null values are coming, and all those things we have to first massage the data and bring it to a level so that it can be generate good results.
Right. So just staying on, and because Mr. Reddy will join, and when he joins, we will go to him for his opening comments. But till then, Naveen, just starting back with you, working almost like a little backwards. You mentioned about integrated, taking integrated views, and others have also mentioned about that. Now, just give us an example of, if you can name an organization, that's perfect. If you can't, but just hide the name, but tell us about what some of the best cases of examples of such taking integrated views you have seen, The reason, because, say, for example, BPCL, it has crude procurement, which is upstream, and it can come from various places. And there is many parameters in crude procurement. I'm sure some of it is automated, but there is a lot of judgment also, which comes from various times. And sometimes data models might suggest something, sometimes they may not. Okay. Then you go into, the logistics of crude. Then you get into the refining part of it, where you're talking about the refining slate. Then you talk about the transportation of the products, then marketing margins. Some products have very different pricing dynamics and so on. And even given the volatility which we are seeing across the world, this becomes quite interesting now, and challenging, I'm sure. So where have you seen some good examples from the oil and gas industry, if possible, or maybe from across industries, of integrated margin management, say, for example?
Yeah, so recently we completed one of the projects. I mean, that's been one of our favorites, that in the supply chain, where we have implemented an integrated supply chain model, in which, we have done the forecasting, in which the demand forecasting and the price forecasting was done, wherein the data from varied sources was collected. This is for a petrochemical client, where the international prices, the inventory values, from SCADA system, or the historian, how much the inventories are available, what has been the demand, which is, and then we forecasted the demand at different locations. The prime objective was how to maximize the margins for the company. In order to maximize the margins, there were different contracts which were available, which the company has done with its end customers. Those contracts are long-term contracts. They have, the star customers, non-star customers, ad hoc customers, different contractual arrangements are there. I mean, based upon the different demand which is coming up from the end customers, based upon what has to be, the production plan has to be prepared, because the production plan for petrochemical, you have to minimize the wastages. So it was an integrated model what we prepared from forecasting, developing a production plan with respect to minimizing the off-spec products, and then developing a margin optimization model, that how much each product has to be distributed across each particular location, so that overall company margins are maximized based upon the different contractual conditions. So it varied from data management, doing the forecasting, developing a production planning optimization model, and then a distribution model in which what particular product each particular customer has to get, so that overall customer margins are maximized. So this was from a supply chain perspective, a small view what we developed. Of course, it can be extended more from transportation on a distribution model. That's what we are in discussion with the customer, so that overall supply chain is integrated, and the companies and the customer get the holistic view.
Thanks, Naveen. And I think that covers part of the oil and gas value chain, petrochemicals being thing, but it's a much more a B2B business, whereas Rahul's business is a combination of B2B and B2C. I just want to go to Rahul with the same question, that when you have looked at Anubhav as a program, or even otherwise, have you looked at integrated margin management as use cases, and what's been the realizations from that kind of investigation?
So, Project Anubhav largely revolves around customer experience. Okay, and anything and everything we have done in Project Anubhav is around that. I mean, the senior management of BPCL was clear in their mandate that we will not look inwards. All what we'll do will be to satisfy some or many requirements of the customer. So, in our loops business value chain, there was a scope, and that is where we build the entire business model around that. Okay, and just to explain to you, typically lubricants, it is a very fierce and a competitive market with the international players having their own dominance, and us oil companies competing based on the quality of our products. We end up having a very large share of costs built up in our pricing. So it's very important for us to look at supply chain in a totally different manner. And lubricants is all about cost leadership and quality of the product and serving particular need of a customer segment. So when we looked at our existing model, we very clearly figured out that there was a scope for end-to-end tracking of how the business happens. So that's when at our operating locations, for every package we make, be it a carton, be it a box, be it a bottle or a sachet, we have started to introduce a QR code solution, which we track not only from the manufacturing plant to the CNF agent, to the distributor, to the retailer, to the bazaar, to the mechanic, and then to the end consumer. So over this entire value chain, we have built this solution where you get data from every interaction which happens or every exchange which happens. Now, this gives us a lot of insights. Now, when you look at these insights, these obviously help us in decartelizing the entire discount burden on BPCL. It gives us white patches, the areas where your consumption is not happening, because these coupons are scanned by the end users for some reward or incentive or a gift, which is instantly redeemable on our Hello BPCL app. So based on the consumption, we very clearly come to know that these are the segments where the consumption is happening. These are the consumption centers, and these are the white patches where we need to position, our agents or distributors or retailers, whatever the case may be. So you get not only an insight around where you have to grow your business, how do you reduce your cost, at the same time, how do you gratify your customer instantly so that his experience, he is more inclined to come back to BPCL when he's making a choice of buying a lubricant. So this is how we have addressed this entire value chain. And we are very proud to say that from the point, from the well to the wheel, if you look at it, we are the only organization in the world which has this solution which has been created. So yes, this forms a very important part in Project Anubhav. While we have not looked at it in terms of our retail business or LPG business, because we were at a very fairly advanced stages in those areas, because secondary movement is something which has already been built. Optimization has already been built around that using our conventional ERP systems through SAP. So yes, I mean, I hope this example is good enough to give credence to the fact that BPCL has really rewritten the norms of supply chain when it comes to the lubricants industry.
It's absolutely awesome. I think, and also the way that you presented it, I think it made it so clear. It made it so easy. I'm sure that the implementation wasn't so easy, but that's okay. I mean, we understand that implementation will always have challenges. I just wanted to pick up the incentives point, because I think that's a brilliant point, that everybody in the chain should have, two things should happen. One is that it should be easy. Adoption should be easy. If it's a challenge, then it's a disincentive. And then actually a direct incentive and almost like an instant gratification. It serves so many use cases. It is loyalty, it is, buying.
Anish, I'd like to share a statistics with you. Typically, coupon redemption or these, redemption, which used to be a manual activity, used to be to the tune of around 1.5 crores worth of coupons in a quarter. And we are very happy to share that in a period of 4 months, our 10 crore rupees worth of coupons have been already redeemed by the mechanics and the retailers who are using our QR code. So this is, this is almost 150% jump over what we were doing earlier to what we are, offering it to the customers. And very rightly, if it is instant, it is gratifying.
Right. No, just another curiosity, right? We must move on with the conversation, but at the same time, has it made a difference to your market share? Have you analyzed market share on whether it's making a difference?
So, Anish, I told you 4 months is the time when we have, launched it. Lubricants is a very high inventory loaded business. Okay, you have inventory at all points in the value chain. So we need to exhaust the older inventory for the QR code inventory to completely replace it. So there is a cycle time of around 4 to 6 months before we will be actually realizing it. But to share with you, we have classic examples of our distributors calling up and thanking us, sharing their insights that, there was product coming from different states into our states, which is now completely stopped. There was a fraudulent product which was coming in, which is no more finding its way in his area of operation, because this is not replicable. You can print a QR, but you cannot attach a value to the QR. And the value to the QR is through the cloud, which we are controlling. So that is where, people have given up on BPCL for once, to not to try and forge anything, on the wrong side.
No, absolutely. And I think cloud integration, app integration, it leads to many things which we don't realize that it will lead to. And this is a classic thing. I don't know how much of it you had planned for, but it sometimes yields much more than what you have planned for.
Yeah, we are almost there. We are 90% complete. We are launching the last phase of retailers loyalty in the coming month. So hopefully with that, our lubricants entire piece would be up and the business model is recreated. And we know that this is going to make a significant contribution to the bottom line of the organization.
Fantastic.
And more so to the customer who's going to experience BPCL completely different. Yeah.
Right. Let me go over to Mr. Raju. Mr. Raju, the key thing in some of this adoption is incentives. Now, in an upstream organization, and which is in the government sector, how do you build in incentives for adoption for people? And as you mentioned, onshore business has limited adoption because it's a little bit of a retrofit, unlike offshore where it comes with the equipment itself, the infrastructure itself. But when you're looking at retrofits, it's sometimes painful, right? So how do you see adoption going through?
Right. From the part of incentives is not a big leverage tool beyond a point, because our customers are also our colleagues. See, and we are a service basically. Let's say Infocom, I represent Infocom. So we have service within the catering to the main domain, and we as a company itself is mostly in service sector, if you can say that. So incentives maybe have a meaningful value instantaneously, but ultimately what is we really see in the area is, if a professionally job done, a pat on the back is more than a big incentive. Because we are not dealing with some sort of a sales part of a thing that if you are there, we cannot monetize the value of the work done, because sometimes the value of the work done may be tremendous. We cannot put a value to it. It may, so very difficult to say as a percentage or a monetize because of the aspect of the nature of the work. But we are inducting technology induction is not an issue. Change management always has been an issue, and that has to be done at a primary given importance, because if there are two basic things when we talk of digital transformation or application of digital technologies. What are we transforming? Are we transforming any area of work? Am I doing anything new? Suppose if we are saying just well monitoring. Am I doing? So what is the technology exactly being used right now? And what is the technology? Suppose a new technology has come from well monitoring. what value is going to be added. Unless there is a change in the way we work, the application of technology will be covering the inefficiencies of the earlier process. So any process has certain basic inherent deficiencies. So unless the technology improves it, it is application of a new technology onto the existing deficiencies also. Typically, a case in point is using AI/ML. I think one of the questions also come up, which we see a lot of interest. We are there. We see that a lot of it has a way go ahead is production optimization. Suppose I have a typical hydrocarbon is a 3-phase generation, and to separate it, to measure oil, to measure liquid, to measure gas, I need to separate it into 3 different phases. But there are mechanisms available which our counterparts in the Western world are using it. We call it virtual 3-phase measurement of flow. So without separator equipment, without a costly infrastructure, I can, with a reasonable prediction of flow, say 95% accuracy, we have tools which can predict the flow, saying that this is the 3-phase. Oil is this much, gas is this much, and liquid is this much. So that itself is a major incentive in process optimization and things like that. So if the result is good and the life of the operator becomes easy, like before SCADA, if one has to monitor a level, people have to climb on top of a tank or monitor the physical levels and things like that. But once SCADA has come or automation has come, you are monitoring in the control room. So it make a meaningful difference to the life of the operator. That makes a lot of change. Acceptance of technologies comes with that. So these are the basic incentives.
Right. So the gains are the incentive, and especially if it makes life easier and gives a sense of accomplishment, then that is the incentive. And I think in B2B processes or internal processes, that clearly will continue to be the case. Now we cannot get away from that. I just want to pick up the AI/ML point and ask both Sandeep Gupta and Santosh Bise about that. In fact, with Santosh, we want to come back to that line pack management thing and whether there is a application of AI/ML in that. But before that, to Sandeep Gupta, you mentioned that you've made specific applications of AI/ML use cases on AI/ML. So just give us a sense of, broadly, what kind of use cases, and also between descriptives, predictives, prescriptives, how do you see this whole space play out for you?
Anish, in fact, I'll just make it a bit broader and give you some use cases which are important from an upstream perspective, right? I mean, if you look into an upstream value chain, one of the key things is the exploration. Right now, it takes sometimes 2 years to actually crunch the data and find where the oil is, right? And the KPI for that is first time to oil. And this is where we recently did a project where we took a lot of our GNG, geological and geophysics workstations, over to cloud. And many times when we actually take them, the mistake which we make is that we build a business case on cost. And again, the fundamental change was that the KPI to track was first time to oil. If it is taking 2 years, right now, if I take this, crunch the time, and then I also take many of my applications which are available on SaaS, like Petrol, etc., which were all on-premise. So we have taken all of these on cloud and crunched the time to first time to oil by 20 to 25%. Again, we will know, as we discover more oil wells, we will exactly know what is the real KPI. But approximately, this is what we have done. And this is just one sample use case. Now, asking about AI/ML, another one which is very important is we have used drones. So we have these overhead lines, power overhead lines, right? And sometimes they develop snags, they crack, and then there is a disruption in, the pipeline or the production. So now we are using drones now to find out where are the possibilities where these can snap. They take in photos, they put in, and then we run the AI/ML. And there has been, and we have seen a significant difference, in terms of there's hardly been any case of snag right now since we have launched this. And what we are also doing is that we try it in one sector, one BU, which is like the oil BU. Then we have the gas BU as well. So we try it out in one and then horizontally scale it up in other BUs. So that has been very successful from an AI/ML perspective. There are multiple other use cases specifically on the predictive. We are also doing a complete asset performance management. And this is not just predictive, it is the entire asset lifecycle. which is basically you identify the critical assets which you have, and then the entire life cycle in terms of when do they need maintenance, the predictive, and the entire life cycle is managed, for which you need the data. So again, I'm just giving you very quickly understand, we might be running out of time. So these are some of the sample use cases which we have been using, and ultimately the backbone is data.
Great, thank you. Let me just go over, and I know that we're quickly running out of time in this interesting discussion, and we ended up starting a little late for reasons I mentioned. But Santosh, of going from upstream to the midstream, downstream segment, and especially in the context of the changing environment and the gas markets, what are the kind of use cases, especially for predictives and prescriptives, you see?
Yeah, coming to line pack management and all, actually this pipeline application software, it's having inbuilt features of it takes all the data from gas chromatographs installed across the pipeline. Then from at every 30 kilometers, it takes data of pressure transmitters, then temperature transmitters and all. Now, from the perspective of growing markets, we are having now a lot of CGD customers coming in. A lot of times are going on. So it will be challenging in the coming years to track all the deliveries and all. And I think definitely artificial intelligence is going to help us from that point of view.
Right. So Naveen, over to you, and also your hand is up. I don't know whether it was for a specific point which you want to make, in which case do go ahead and make it. But also, my broader question again, across the oil and gas value chain, where do you see the new kinds of use cases coming, especially for predictives and prescriptives?
So Anish, I'll start with the midstream now, from Santosh's industry. Within the pipeline infrastructure, it's a asset huge industry. I mean, where the cross-country pipelines are actually built, and a lot of capital intensive is there, and a lot of compressor stations are there, a lot of assets are there. So like Mr. Sandeep Gupta was mentioning, the predictive maintenance for these particular assets can be done integrating the condition data and a lot of the maintenance data, and building the predictive maintenance, predictive asset capabilities, predictive operations capabilities, because if these are integrated, gas, like National Gas Grid is coming up, a lot of different pipelines get integrated. If disruption happens at one particular end, then one needs to predict what can happen at the customer end, because it takes a lot of time for the gas or for the liquid products to travel. So those kind of predictive capabilities in terms of the liquid pipelines, lot much energy intensive, like DRAs getting induced. I mean, one of my co-panelists was talking about polymer optimization. So there also, within the liquid products pipeline, DRAs gets induced in order to optimize the energy of travel from one particular state to another particular state, from source to destination. How much those DRAs can need to be induced, so that the operation of those compressors can be optimized. So those energy level optimization can be considered as a couple of use cases within the pipeline industry. With respect to the refinery, we spoke about whether it is from refinery perspective or from planning or scheduling perspective, blend optimization perspective. Those kind of use cases occur within the refinery. Of course, the focus is on the customer experience perspective. So there are use cases which exist not only from the supply chain optimization, but also with respect to demand forecasting, supply chain optimization. These are the use cases which we have seen in discussion with a lot of companies in the past. Margin optimization, these exist within the downstream industry. But from the upstream perspective, of course, Mr. BP Raju, he gave us a good view from a perspective of virtual flow meters. These are all multi-phase flow meters in which the forecast need to be developed. Where all these, because these are quite cost intensive meters, when the maintenance has to be carried out, which meter is not performing, and it has to be taken out from the production module. These all predictive capabilities has to be built so that accurate production reporting, production accounting can be done. With respect to the drilling optimization use cases can be implemented with respect to what all the drilling parameters need to be there in order to optimize the rate of penetration, the cost of drilling. All these use cases are applicable with respect to drilling. It can be from reservoir characterization, knowing better about the reservoir, where does the sweet spot exist, how better to utilize the seismic data, different log level data, so that the faults can be identified and all these reservoir characterization can be performed better. So I've covered, some of the use cases from upstream, midstream, downstream. These are quite aggressively being discussed within not only within the Indian location, but globally. These have been discussed and delivered in the past from within different companies.
Right, thanks, Naveen. So we have a question queue building up. We'll just go to the first one. And Rahul, I see that you would like to answer this question live. So why don't you go ahead and answer that? The question is that in view of the fact that the basic PID loop control system is a mathematical model, APC is also a multivariate mathematical model. What are your views on using AI/ML technology for manufacturing process optimization and control and early event detection / prediction? Rahul, this was, I thought it says that you would like to answer this question live.
No, certainly I would not be in a position to answer this in totality, because though I understand the question quite well, I mean it's all about how do you build the data, and as the data quality and quantity improves, predictive use cases, forecasting, and other AI/ML models can be used to solve all these problems. But I think somebody from the core refining side would be better positioned to answer this question. If there is a very specific requirement on that, which I see it is on the manufacturing process optimization and control. So I would rather like to pass on this question.
Yeah, we should defer it to somebody, and we don't have a refinery expert on the panel, so I think we'll just pass on this question. We have the next question, and this is on upstream, and maybe Mr. Raju, if I can request you to look at this one. It's from Mohit Singhai. It says that, could you please throw some light about the application of AI/ML processes for seismic data interpretation and for optimization of site selection? The question goes on.
Yeah, I can in fact go for the question of Shadab Khan also.
Okay.
Basically, he's asking whether we can predict an event with a process, because a typical process has a PID control. Now, a PID control happens after an event has taken place. Now, you are asking us, and an optimization and control of the PID loop tuning can take place in any process. But he is asking whether AIML can be used to predict whether the process will be, there will be an upset in the process. Now, any prediction will have a certain amount of risk and accuracy, and it is not 100% sure. So whether the process, even if there is a 0.1% upset, whether the process will can accommodate that or not is a very critical. Depends on what is the critical process or not. Otherwise, it can predict, suppose some parameter going up based on the alarm management module. Prediction can happen depending on the how many alarms have been generated, how many pressure fluctuation have taken. If I'm monitoring a pressure loop, let's say, how many surges have taken place in the past and all. So based on the hierarchical or historical data only, the prediction can happen. Prediction cannot happen on its own based on the things. So that's my question on that. Whereas in second question, like AML, what our interpretation centers are doing is, we have developed the inbuilt AIML process, because nowadays because of the vast urbanization, the area of seismic processing does not deal with signal. It deals with how to cancel noise. The more effective process which takes care of noise, the signal will come out of the noise. So ultimate what matters in any interpretation of seismic data is the signal to noise ratio. So suppose I'm taking a picture of 4 kilometers down the earth below, the signal is very weak over there, because earth by itself, nature acts as a low pass filter. So I'm looking at very low frequencies at deep down. So what is the noise at this level? Because signal level will be very weak. So unless I improve the signal to noise ratio, the picture improvement doesn't happen on its own. So this is where it is not a typical image processing. It is unless the signal to we need to go at each and every data component and try to see what is the noise at that level. Can I filter out that noise without damaging the signal? Doing a spectral analysis and understanding the frequencies of the noise frequencies. So this is where AIML has a lot of application and potential. And we are using some inbuilt AIML tools for this. We have an specific institute at Dehradun called GeoPic, with specialization in the processing. So we are dealing with this through inbuilt AIML process for improving typically the signal to noise ratio.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for both those answers. I think that's been very, very clear. And we'll go to the next one, again from the same questioner, Mohit, asking that also in HP wells, and we'll go to Sandeep for this maybe, drilling fluids play a very important role in maintaining well and optimization costs. Any specific use cases in modeling the PVT and real-time properties for prediction of the intrinsic properties of well fluids?
Anish, maybe a similar use case, not familiar exactly with this, but what we are doing is, this is more, and again, I think Naveen also spoke about this, is in drilling. As we drill, we are using a use case called AI-based frac, which is basically, you keep on drilling, you keep on fracking, which is basically creating cracks to find out what is the optimum path. So as we keep on drilling, we get the data and we used AI to find out where possibly we need to drill. It's called the AI-based fracking. That's the use case which we are doing internally to find out the optimum way to actually frack.
Great, thank you. We'll just coming fairly quickly to the close. It's been an engaging hour, but I just want to end this with pulling a little bit things together. But before that, a couple of questions. And if you are okay, then we can just go over maybe 5 minutes over if you all are okay with that. Unless, okay, so we'll just do that accordingly. I just wanted to come to the role of cloud, and Rahul, you mentioned in the context of the lubricants, you have the cloud control of the cloud. Now, 3 years back, the way we understood cloud versus today, the functionalities, the capabilities of cloud are very, very different. So how do you see cloud adoption in the sector? And when I say the sector, I'm also distinguishing a little between the public sector and the private sector, and I'm still confused about where you are. But yes, so that's the question, Rahul.
So, Anish, if your doubt on our being a private sector or a public sector is there, then the world calls us MNC in a PSU guard. So you can very
Yeah, because
safely
to me,
assume
we've
that.
always been more private sector kind of attitude than public sector ever, even before
Yeah,
all these processes started. So that's why.
Yeah, so we do take a lot of pride in being a very innovative organization, and that is precisely the reason why our management is up for any kind of challenging intervention if it has to be made for improving our customer interactions or improving our process efficiencies or process compliances. We have taken those measures every now and then, and that's why we are considered as tech pioneers in the industry. Now, as a PSU, to take a decision on going completely on cloud-based architecture right from the word go was not an easy one, and though it was for scalability and speed, but it had taken a lot for us to convince even the internal stakeholders through a TCO analysis and find ways to use cloud through innovative procurement within public sector guidelines. So it was a huge challenge because we were the first ones in the public sector to be moving on a all cloud architecture, not even hybrid. So all our solutions which we have built now are built on a headless architecture with the backend on cloud. So this gives us the ability to listen to the customer's viewpoint and experiences and evolve rapidly, ensuring the backend and front end can swiftly handle upgrades and new feature releases. So adoption by not by just making a statement that we are an agile organization, but building processes, building solutions which enable this agility also is something which we practice, and that's why we have gone in for a complete cloud approach. The data lake approach allows us to quickly pick data in its intended form, ensuring veracity, velocity, volume, and variety for faster data analytics and enhanced customer experience. And that is all. I mean, you would have heard maybe to the level of sounding very obnoxious about customer experience, but it is drilled into us, and anything and everything we are building is around that experience. So cloud offers us that scalability, that liberty, that freedom to create, innovate, and release fast, even fail fast. So that is why we have gone in for cloud. And yes, being a public sector, it was not an easy task. But now I think we have become a role model and example for many organizations to adopt this approach. Anish, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we are coming to the end of time. And I want to end this conversation with a short response from each of you. If you have a wish list, and this is not for your own organization, but for database decision making and transformation of organizations, to really take this forward, for what would that wish be? And you can contextualize it to your sector, but you can contextualize it broadly to the oil and gas sector segment, or to the broadly to the oil and gas sector. Maybe we're starting with Mr. Raju.
Wish list for exactly what specifically?
Just to see transformation, the true potential of data-driven decision making being realized in this sector.
There are two critical areas personally I would like to focus. The first is, what is it I would like to transform? The process. I would go back, revisit a decade back. There was a thing called re-engineering the corporation. There was a movement before industrialization 4, in our college days or in our early career days. So the basic theory is, why do we do what we do, and why do we do the way we do? If you ask these two questions, then the requirement of transformation comes. Then technology comes as an enabler to fulfill that gap. How to enable that?
Right.
How to address those gaps. That's where the application of technology, the suitable technology comes into picture. It can be AI/ML or it can be anything. And the second I would like to is, we are all talking of analytics, but ultimately it is a source which matters, the instrumentation, the sensors. So how do I populate the sensors, and how do I see that sensors are giving the accuracy to? So how do I nip the data quality at the source itself before the data is stored into the layers? So in our applications across ONGC, in the new upgrades which we are doing, compared to any production SCADA or drilling or any other, we are putting imperatively data quality assessment on mathematical models at the source itself.
Right. Right.
The operator can itself kill the data if the data quality is poor, or mathematically, let's say there are 5 or 6 conditions in which we know that this is going to be there. Let's say there's a make and break contact, or null values are there. The process is not changing over a period of time. So this can, some attributable factors are there where we can filter out the data so that that data is not used for analytics. Otherwise, the analytics become meaningless.
Okay, fantastic. So I think one is the, define the process changes, and the second is do it at the edge, essentially, just do all.
Do it at the edge. We are saying the limit the
noise.
incorrect data, inaccurate data,
Yeah,
noise. Basically, we can say noise.
Yes, and you gave us this fantastic thing about signal to noise, the concept of signal
Because
to noise.
see, as a geophysicist once told, the basic thing is trained to observe the fault. He's trained to observe the noise.
Yes.
See, if you are a good oil and gas engineer, you have to observe the abnormality. So study the abnormality. That's where the picture comes up.
Fantastic. Sandeep, to you, about what would be on your wish list?
Two things, Anish. One is definitely, I think, where there is a movement in terms of data-driven decision making, as we call it, having the right dashboard, right analytics. I think there is a significant movement in that. So I think basically taking it to the last level, I mean, that's what my first wish list would be. And second would be specifically on ways of working. I think this is an area which is still lagging, basically removing all manual interventions, manual tasks, and making it completely, workflow based or automated. I think that would be my second.
Yes, and I think workflows are really, really critical, because half the time we don't integrate with the workflows, the corruption continues in that sense. Corruption, not the financial form, but the data corruption continues. Santosh, we say to your thoughts.
Yeah, our wish list, and in fact, we are working on this. We want to integrate all our data on a single screen. Like it will be having maintenance data, operations data, design data, everything. It will fall in one place, including a digital twin of all the equipments. That is our dream, and we are working towards it.
Okay, Naveen, you would want all of them to do what they are trying to do, right? But
absolutely, Anish. Absolutely, you're bang on.
Right. Okay.
On top of it, the real-time decision making may, maybe additionally on top of that agenda.
Okay. Okay. And Rahul, finally, your word on this.
So my 2 cents on this is be focused on what you set yourself out for. So if you're trying to solve many problems at the same time, you will end up having multiple data sets with no value. Okay, so if you are wanting to improve the customer experience, then anything related to those interactions only should be looked at, and nothing in adjacency. So that is, the focus is very, very important part. Second thing is, you cannot do anything without people. If you don't take the people along with you, no amount of transformation is going to help if the people who are going to implement it do not feel the same what you are trying to do. So these are my 2 cents to summarize. Thanks for the opportunity.
So Arjun's razor sharp focus on the eye of the fish, and
yeah.
And also the Pandav army, it has to be mobilized. Okay, fantastic. So I won't try to summarize all of this. This has been such a rich discussion, and if I try to summarize this, it's going to be really troublesome for me. I'm going to miss out lots of stuff. But I do want to thank this panel. It's been just fabulous. every interaction of this nature, and some of you I have interacted with before, some I haven't, but this is just, I'm just expanding my own knowledge and my own sphere of people who really have been contributing to that. I hope that audiences also gained from this. I think some of the key high-level thoughts which I took out was, for example, on the signal to noise, just looking at it from a different perspective rather than very traditional ways. I think that's something, Mr. Raju, you mentioned. I take away a lot from that. In fact, I saw another example of aircraft, which had been downed, and there was a thing going out in the WhatsApp groups and saying that how people looked at that differently. That question was, the data was looked at it differently.
Yeah, the MS-370 got from radio ham signals. Now they are about to discover it.
Yes, so amazing stuff on that. The ease of adoption and use. All of you mentioned that. The incentives, various kinds of incentives. Sometimes it can be financial if it's an external party. Sometimes it could be internal entities, and the accomplishments are the incentives. And getting that accomplishment is very, very important. The ROI points, which we talked about. Rahul, you talked about veracity, velocity, value, and variety. Did I get that right? Okay, so my handwriting sometimes, I think my handwriting needs to go digital. It's really a lot of noise rather than data there. But having said that, thank you, fantastic discussions, and I do hope that we have such forums to interact more on this, and in fact take some of these threads forward. Thank you again, and have a great day.